like cures like, and the dilution solution is what I now call it.
Oh my gosh, I love that as a name, the dilution solution.
Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm a science teacher.
I'm Cheryl, and I slept through science.
Each episode will tackle a science question you may have learned in school, but can't quite remember or fully explain.
And I'll take the risk of asking the dumb questions so that we can all understand the science we slept through.
The bell has rung. Let's get started.
Welcome to Lesson 64. Cheryl, what item of quackery do we get to quack about today?
Today, Ryan, we are going to quack about homeopathy. And I'm pretty excited, mainly because I only kind of understand what it is in the first place. So this is going to be really fun.
You only kind of know what homeopathy is, huh?
Yes, I've listened to one podcast episode, a podcast you and I both love, Oh No, Ross and Carrie. Honestly,
Yes.
if our listeners don't know this podcast, they should check it out if they enjoy what we're doing, especially in this unit at all. Their podcast is pretty much all about quackery.
Yep. All the time. I will say it is significantly longer than our podcast, even though these last few episodes have gotten longer, even for us. There's still nothing compared to the Oh No, Ross and Carrie length. I think it's worth it. I enjoy it, but some people prefer shorter podcasts. So just
totally. Well, they actually do the things, so that's very cool.
It is true.
But years ago, they did a homeopathy episode, and I think everything I know about it is from what I remember of that episode, which I did not sleep through, but it was several years ago.
But it was, yes. And it was only one episode. Well, let's move into the pre-assessment then. And let's start by pre-assessing, what do you think you know about what homeopathy is?
Okay. So I've also heard of like homeopathic doctors. So I'm curious, like, do these doctors only work in homeopathy? Is it this very broad term? Is it the same as like natural remedies? Or do they have overlap with natural remedies? I think it's like the opposite. Not the opposite. I think it's one of the things that's saying like an alternative to Western medicine. And what I specifically remember from that podcast episode is that they talked about how the pills or like whatever the different medicines that you're taking are super, super watered down.
Okay.
And that it carries the essence of whatever that thing is. But it's like it keeps being diluted and diluted and diluted. And then that dilution process is supposed to be what makes it work, which feels pretty backwards to me. Something they pointed out that I honestly think about with all sorts of things when I hear about them is they were told that it's impossible to overdose on those pills. And so like I think Carrie ate like a whole bottle of something, some sort of homeopathic medicine, and had no effects. But their point was if it works, then it should be possible to overdose. Like there should be a dosage that is appropriate. And so then it should be possible to OD on it. And if that's not possible, then why would it like work in the first place?
Okay.
You know, which I thought was a very interesting criticism to think through. Yeah.
What sorts of things does homeopathy get used for? Do you know? Have you seen homeopathic anything?
No. So I'm not sure if it's just like headaches is the first thing that comes to mind. Is it just like kind of different like ailments? And it's like, hey, I've tried all these things, so now I'm going to go to a homeopathic doctor. And or are they like prescribing acupuncture sometimes or like other things? Or are they only subscribing like prescribing like these homeopathic drugs? I would guess just like various ailments that people aren't having success with a traditional doctor. But I don't really know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know, is it something that a lot of people use or follow or anything like that? Do you know how prevalent it is?
I mean, I group it in my brain with the last couple weeks of content that we've been talking about is like I group it with the same people who have a lot of essential oils in their homes. But I don't know, like every once in a while I hear people talking about how they go to a homeopathic doctor. So I think I don't know. I don't know what percentage that is or anything, but it's something that isn't unheard of.
Okay. How do you think a homeopathic doctor compares to a traditional Western medicine doctor? Not just in what they are telling their patients to do, but in their background, their credentials, all those sorts of things.
I'm guessing the school they go to is different. The degree they get is different. The amount of study, I'm guessing like all those things it's just a different program.
All right. So you don't think that it's an area of specialty that a Western doctor could do or focus on? You feel like it's a separate thing?
Yes, but I don't trust it, and that's part of why I don't trust it.
Okay. Well, let's dive into that a little bit more. Why don't you trust it, other than that it was on the podcast?
Well, I think the whole thing about like super diluted medicines, like I just feel like I can see right through that. An aspect of it that sounds appealing is that I've heard thoughts of like there's more of like a holistic approach to things, that like these doctors are looking at more things going on, but I don't know if that's now outdated, because I feel like today's doctors are talking with people about like anxiety or mental health or like these other aspects of their lives or their diet or these different things like contributing to their physical health. But it sounds, honestly, it sounds very lovely and like, oh, so sweet, the homeopathic doctor. And also I don't trust it. And so, but I think I might trust it more if it was somebody who became a doctor, like a Western medicine doctor, and then like got this little add-on thing, I honestly might trust it a little bit more. I don't think so.
Probably happened. Okay.
But that's a guess.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Any other thoughts about what might make homeopathy more questionable? Talk about the dilution thing. Anything else that you know about it?
That's really all I know about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me just give you some examples of homeopathic products or categories that I found on this thing called the internet. Perhaps you've heard of it.
Yeah, I'm a little familiar.
Yeah, you can buy lots of things there. Okay. Well, this is a homeopathic product website. We'll link it below. But these are the different categories of things to give you an idea what sorts of things they treat. They have a category for allergy, children and baby, cough, cold, and flu, digestive, pain relief, skincare, stress and sleep, women's wellness.
That all sounds like what I would assume.
And why? Why does that? What lines up with what you're thinking?
Well, here's what I appreciate is that cancer is not on that list. Because it is kind of
a good thing.
Annoying sometimes when they're saying like these very mild things or what's going to cure your cancer, or like anything that serious. I mean, you could say some of these things are serious, but like pain management and skincare and for kids, like it sounds like this similar feeling of like all natural diets and skincare, like, and like those buzzwords, like this sounds very similar to that, as far as like just trying to come up with some alternative cures to some things that are maybe not at like a surgical level or at like a chemo level or like a serious drug need for, managing something, but more just like, there's some stuff going on with me physically and trying to explore my options, that type of feeling.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts related to this before we launch into the actual lesson?
Nope.
All righty. Let's go ahead and dive into the lesson then, shall we?
All right.
First of all, are they doctors? That's one of the first things that you talked about.
Yes.
And it depends on what you mean by doctor. They are not medical doctors.
Okay.
But you can have you can be an ND, not an MD.
Which
is
ND.
a N like never.
Okay.
Which if you're an ND, it's they say a doctorate of naturopathic medicine, but it's not considered a medical doctor, which means they cannot prescribe medication.
And is there a difference between a naturopath and a homeopath?
Yes. Naturopath is broader and includes other things. Homeopathy can fall under naturopathy, but they don't necessarily.
Okay, so I wonder if what I was thinking of is more of a naturopath. When I was describing, like, there are different things they might suggest.
Yes.
Like the face poking.
Acupuncture?
Acupuncture, yep. Like acupuncture, like, like these other things. Is that more what a naturopath would do?
I believe that is correct.
Okay.
Yes. And then they might also do homeopathy. But if you're just a homeopathic practitioner, you're only focused on homeopathy.
Got
and
it.
You remembered a few things. You said it's alternative to Western medicine, which is true mostly. However, homeopathy actually originated in Germany.
Interesting.
Which is interesting, which is definitely part of what we traditionally would consider the West.
Yeah.
And it's still relatively common over there, although I would also say it's relatively common here in the United States as well. But you kind of talked about like watered down pills and things like that. There are two main sort of tenets behind homeopathy. And when I say these, I'm guessing they will sound familiar to you.
Okay.
The first one is like cures like.
Yes, I've heard of that.
Do you know what that means?
It means that if your toe hurts, you should smash it with a hammer.
Well, not quite. Not exactly.
No, it means more like if there's something, I don't know, if there's something that's a problem, then like you find something very similar to it.
Yes.
To be
one
the solution.
example, one very common example is if you're having problems with your eyes, like allergies, you would take an onion, which when you cut an onion, it also makes your eyes water, and you would use that because it is causing the same thing. So you use something that causes the same thing to cure the thing.
Like a magnet. I don't know. I was thinking of magnets. Don't worry about it. It's not a good analogy.
Okay. But the idea is that you take the substance that is causing the same problem and you use that to lead to a cure.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. The second thing is called the law of minimum dose. And you also sort of talked about this when you talked about it being watered down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the idea that the lower the dose of the medication, the greater its effectiveness. And they do these dilutions where you put whatever the substance is into either water or alcohol, depending on what the substance is. And then you dilute it. And then you take a little bit of that one and you put that into another thing of like water, alcohol, and then you dilute that, and you take out of that one and you do that a certain number of times to the point where there's none of the original substance left. And that would be the most effective according to homeopathy because it is diluted the most. And it's an idea of, and I think there's a term for it, but I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. Potentiation, I think is what it is, where you take the water and it now has sort of the essence of that thing in it. And the water sort of remembers that.
Like the telephone game.
No.
These analogies of mine are really good. Well, eventually the message becomes something totally different.
Yes, but there is still a message. And in homeopathy, there's not even a message left.
Like the telephone game, if you're very far apart from the people you're playing with.
Yes. And then someone just sort of leans towards your ear and just goes. Yeah. So there's sounds, but there's actually no message left. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. How does that jive with what you were thinking previously?
Totally right on. I definitely meshed naturopath and homeopath into one thing. And now that you're telling me this, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember those aspects of the like cures like and the dilution to success.
Dilution to success. That's what it's called. Yep, that's exactly it. And it's interesting because I was telling you this a little bit earlier, but when I've been looking for resources, when you search homeopathy or naturopathy or any of those things on the internet, most of the sites that you get are from those who are supporting it and saying, here's why it's good and here's how it works and here's all these other things. It's actually fairly challenging to dive in and actually be able to tell which thing's from a medical institution and which thing isn't, because they often will look very similar. One of the websites that I found had the, I don't know what it's called, but the emblem that's often on like an ambulance that's kind of like a cross with like the snake around it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yep. So that was part of their logo and things. So it looks very medical, but they are not medical doctors.
But they're claiming medicine.
Yeah. Well, they call it homeopathic medicine. And again, depending on what, but it depends on what you mean by doctor and what you mean by medicine, because I don't know that they're necessarily lying, because they are attempting to treat medical conditions. So by that definition, yeah, I guess that's a medicine, right? But any of the studies that have been done have shown that none of the homeopathic remedies do any better than a placebo. Because that's literally what they are. They are often just sugar pills. Which is what usually a medical trial will use as a placebo, is like a sugar pill. So, yeah. And yet, there are people who swear by it. So what's that about, Cheryl?
Well, I think it's the placebo, right?
That's
they
definitely
believe
a factor.
that they're taking something that makes them feel better. So they probably do feel better. And they probably might also feel superior that they're not taking like toxic chemicals or whatever they're gonna call other drugs into their bodies,
There's another layer too with this that you sort of talked about just now. You said they're taking things that they already believe is going to make them better. And yes, the placebo effect is part of that, but it also plays in a little bit into confirmation bias. Are you familiar with confirmation bias?
Yeah. Yeah. I think about it in like statistics sometimes, or I'll think about it even at work sometimes, where like if someone will say like, oh, this line is always longer than that line, or this person's always rude, or this light always turns red when I get to it. You notice whenever it's true and you don't really notice whenever it's false. And so you are biased towards the things that are confirming the statement that you said.
That's a great summary. Nice job, Cheryl.
Thank you. I think it's really funny. So I enjoy confirmation bias.
You think it's funny? Why do you think it's funny?
It's just funny statements people make. Even in my workplace, just there's times where people make statements and I just think like, is that because they actually like, I mean, I work in food service, so we actually do talk about lines or things like that? Is it because you counted? Do we have numbers to support this? Or is this off of a feeling, or it's off of when you happen to look up what it's like, you know?
Yeah.
And so, I get very amused by some of the statements people make out in the world about different things and what they consider to be a fact.
Yeah, a really great example, and we are not going to dive into this now. We could do it as a whole nother lesson if we wanted to, but would be the idea that people and crazier things happen around a full moon. That was a really good example of confirmation bias, because crazy things happen all the time. But if you also hear that it's a full moon, you're like, oh, yep, see, it's full moon. That's clearly what's doing it. When if you actually were to chart those things, at which people have done, there is no correlation with when it's a full moon. But it's the same sort of a thing. So I think that's a component that's often going on here too. But at the same time, there's very little in most of the pills. Not always. Some of them do actually have some actual active ingredients in them. And believe it or not, Cheryl, I've even unknowingly used a homeopathic treatment.
Did you drink water?
I did. Well, I've had lots of water to drink, but no,
Yeah,
it was a
homeopathic.
I mean, I guess so. It was for jet lag. You were these pills for taking care of jet lag. And you were supposed to take one every hour, every 30 minutes. I don't remember what it was, these little tiny things. And you would take them once you landed or whatever for a certain number of hours. And it was supposed to help jet lag not be as bad. And I did it and I tried it. And I was like, oh yeah, I mean, my jet lag's not that bad. And then later on, I looked on the back and discovered that it was actually homeopathic. And so the next time I traveled to Europe, I didn't. And guess what? I had about the same type of jet lag that I had when I took the homeopathy. Now, obviously, that is not a rigorous scientific study. I didn't have a careful way of doing that, but it's really easy to think about those things and get sucked in without actually having an objective way of measuring that. I think it's just that my body chemistry had changed enough by the time I had gotten to when I had used it that jet lag just doesn't affect me as much as it used to. You know, I can do better on less sleep now than I used to when I was in my 20s. I don't need quite as much sleep, which is kind of nice sometimes.
Yeah.
You know,
interesting.
So, yeah, there's my little homeopathic anecdote.
Wow, thank you for that personal story.
You're welcome. It means it must be true. And now, Cheryl, it is time for your quiz.
I think what we need to do is take all of the questions from this quiz and then dilute them with like 90% of fun.
Okay.
And then take that and then dilute that with 90% of fun and just keep going until we just have fun. And then we just have like the essence of the quiz, which I think still counts.
I think, yeah, that would definitely be just as valid of an assessment as just asking you the questions themselves. That sounds right. Okay. What are the two main ideas that homeopathy is based on?
Like cures like, and the dilution solution is what I now call it.
Oh my gosh, I love that as a name, the dilution solution.
Yeah, it's also called the law of something, which I'm guessing maybe is not the scientific definition of the word law.
It is not. Yeah, law of minimum dose.
Great.
But the dilution solution, that one, I think I'm going to keep that one. I really like that. What is a difference between a naturopath and a homeopath?
Homeopath is more specific than naturopath, which the naturopath might look at many different remedies for something, and the homeopath will use specifically homeopathic medicine.
Yep. Great. Yep. Naturopath is broader And can do a lot of those other different things. What's a difference between a homeopathic doctor and a medical doctor?
One is a real doctor and the other one used the word doctor, similar to how I have a brother who works in IT and has the title architect in his title. And then I have a sister who is a licensed architect who cannot stand that our brother-in-law has the word architect in his IT title, which means that he lords it over her quite a lot.
I could see that.
Similar to that. That should clear it right up for you.
Yes, that definitely does. I did also realize there's something else that it was implied, but I didn't directly say. Because if you're not a medical doctor, you don't go to medical school.
Yes. You can't not prescribe things, but you did not attend.
Did not attend medical school. It doesn't mean that they didn't attend school, and it doesn't mean they don't have a degree, because there are degree programs, but they are not medical degrees.
That is important.
They are their own degrees around homeopathy. Yeah. And finally, how might homeopathy be an example of confirmation bias?
Well, somebody might take these placebo pills and notice that when they take the pill, their headache goes away. And when they don't take it, their headache doesn't go away. But maybe they don't notice the times where their headache just goes away naturally. Or they don't notice the times when their headache doesn't go away and they do take the pill. They only notice those times where it worked the way they wanted it to work.
Yeah. Well explained, Cheryl. Well explained.
Thanks.
Now, if you don't mind, I need to go do some dilutions so that I can have essence of whatever I feel like. I think essence of chocolate and peanut butter sounds good to me.
No, I want the full chocolate and peanut butter.
Okay, fine. I'll just do the real chocolate and peanut butter. I guess I could do that too. And actually, Cheryl, guess what? We've got a bonus coming up.
A bonus as in bonus pills, or what's the bonus?
No, next week is spring break.
Oh my gosh, I love spring break. So there's no quiz next week?
There is no quiz next week. There is no class next week. We are not going to do a lesson next week because I am going to actually be on spring break because I'm going to Europe. And so I'm taking a whole bunch of students. Me and a couple of colleagues are taking a whole bunch of students to Europe to see cool sciencey things. So we'll not be here and we will not be able to do a lesson. So we're going to take next week off, but we will be back after that, all ready to talk more about quackery stuff. Are you okay if we take a break for a week?
Oh, for sure. Yes.
I figured. All right. Why don't you go ahead and back up your stuff and get ready for my closing remarks.
You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at I Slept Through Science or on Twitter at Slept Science.
If you have dumb science questions like I do, please send them to us. You can email us at isleptthroughscience@gmail.com, or you can even send us a voice memo and we'll play it on the podcast.
Please rate and review our podcast to tell other people what you think about it, subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode, and share about our podcast on social media.
Thank you to Beth Reed Miller for the artwork. You can check out more of Beth's artwork at Beth Is Something. Okay, great. Thanks. Bye.
The bell doesn't dismiss you. I dismiss you.